Hi, third graders. Today we are going to learn our cursive letter U. So my first reminder is that I just want to make sure that you have your paper turned. So make sure if you are right-handed, you've taken your paper and you have turned it to the right. And if you are left-handed, you've taken your paper and you've turned it to the left. It should look the same way as mine if you're a lefty, or now the same way as mine if you are righty. We are going to be working on the cursive letter U. I'm just going to turn my camera here so that it's square on there. My paper is still tilted and pointing at my belly button. If you're not sure which way your paper should be pointing, make sure you ask your teacher to come over and check. So today's cursive letter is the letter U. When we look up here at our arrows, we're going to follow these to help us remember how to do our letter U. So for the U, we start down here at the bottom, this bottom line right here, and we're going to go up to the dotted line. Then when we come back down, like step number 2 shows, you're going to be tracing part of that step. You're going to be tracing back down what we did for 1. So 1 goes up to the halfway point, 2 comes down, it touches the bottom as you curve, and then you go straight back up. Then you come right back down, and then you just curve away from it a little bit. That's step 3, is tracing back down and then away. So I'm going to practice some of these on here. I start on the bottom, I go up to the halfway point, trace my line back down, I made my U, now I trace it back down again, and I curve up a little bit. So you should have 2 points that touch your dotted line, and then make sure that you have your curves at the bottom and that your letter is angled. So I'm going to draw another one. And you can see how I am doing this. I start on the bottom, I go up to that middle line, I trace my line back down, curve there, come back down, and curve back up. That's what your letter U should be looking like. So what I want you to do is only fill in the first row with your letter U's. So go ahead and pause the video and fill in the first row with your letter U's. Now, once you're done filling in that first row, you're pushing play again, and what we're going to do is look down here before we finish writing our letter U's. These are some common mistakes that we see with our letter U for cursive. So remember, this is the correct way. This is what we want it to look like. You go up, curve back down, and go like that. That's what we want your U to look like. I didn't trace it perfectly. Over here, the problem with it is that we have some loops. Instead of tracing the same line back down, this one made its own little loop at the top. Our problem with number 2 is our loop that's supposed to trace this part down and go like that stopped right here. And that's not correct either. The third one, we have 1 point that goes straight up and then it comes down. And then this one is angled and comes back down. So it looks kind of crooked because we have this one that goes straight up and down, and then we have this one that goes at an angle. We want both of them to be going at a little bit of an angle. Okay? So now that we see the mistakes, I want you to make sure that yours up here do not have mistakes. And so now that you know what to be careful of, you are going to now fill in the whole second line and the whole third line with your own letter U's. So make sure that you are, that was not a good one. That's why you use a pencil. I'm using a pen, so I'm going to just ignore that part. I'm going to start a new one right here. I start at the bottom, I go up to that middle part, trace it, I come back down, and I make my loop. So you're going to fill in the top 3 rows here with your cursive letter U. So pause the video to do that. Fill in your top 3 rows with your cursive letter U. Now that you finished your cursive letter U on the top, what I want you to do is look at the bottom section here where you are connecting your letter U with some other letters. So this is an undercurve to an undercurve, meaning our undercurved letter right here connects to a letter that starts with an undercurve. So we're going to have our U right here, up to the middle. And then this next letter is actually a cursive letter R. We haven't learned it. You'll take it up to that dotted line, make a little line down, and then go like that. Trace it first and then draw it on your own. The next letter is an undercurve to an overcurve, meaning our undercurve right here has to turn to an overcurve, a bump that goes over. So this is under, here's our over. So this is the letter U right here that I just traced, attached to the letter N, like that. So I'm going to make one over here. We start on the bottom, go up to the dotted line with our U, just as we've been practicing today. Now that I'm done with that, I'm going to go back up to that dotted line and turn my curve over, come back down, and there's my letter N. So trace the black one first, then draw your own. You can pause the video to do that, and then we're going to move to our next one. Our next letter is the letter T to the letter U, so another undercurve. Our T ends us on an undercurve, and then we start our U with an undercurve. So I'm going to trace first. So for the T, which we've already done here, you go all the way up to the top and back down, and then our U is like that. After you do the whole thing, then you go back and you cross your T. So I'm going to show you over here again. Make sure you watch and do yours in the same order. You start on the bottom, you go up to the top, trace back down, T into a U, just as we've been practicing, and then go back and cross your T just one time. I just did it so you could see it better on here a lot of times, but you'll just cross that T one time on yours. Now I have a cross stroke to an overcurve. This part right here is called the cross stroke. So I'm going to make my O starting at the bottom. This is the one where you go over from that dotted line and then trace it back down to make the letter O. Then we make our cross stroke right there, and we turn that into our undercurve on our U. So I'm going to make another one over here. I start on the bottom. I make my overcurve here first. Then I make the rest of my O where it connects. I make a little loop up to the dotted line. That's my cross stroke. Once I make my cross stroke, I trace it back down. Whoops, I was starting to make an N. I make it just like that. So I started to make an O to an N, and it's supposed to be an O to a U, so you wouldn't have this part right here. That was a mistake. Again, another reason that you are using pencils on yours. So I'll make one more right here. I start with my line for my O, go up to the dotted line, back around, then I do my cross stroke, and then I make my letter U like that. So pause the video. If you're not done with anything, go ahead and finish. If you are, I would like you to stop at this page and make sure that you bring it to your teacher to have your teacher check your pages that you've done so far. I like to check to just make sure that there's not something that we could fix that you might do wrong in the future. So at this point, since we have done 5 letters, you're going to bring your book up to your teacher. Make sure your name is on it. It should be up at the top. And your teacher will take a peek at your book for you. So great job today.